Well, here we go again. I hope you all are ready for another hour of ranting and raving by the Midnight Skeptic, because I'm not going away until I make this country a perfectly MAGA-free country. Okay, this is the Midnight Skeptic, show number 97, and this is being recorded on Thursday, December 1st, the start of a new month. And we're winding down this year. It's been an interesting year. Too many MAGA heads out there for my tastes, but I'll talk about them. Okay, and here's my intro music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, the intro said it all. My views are not necessarily the views of Petaluma Community Access, although they should be, and they probably are to them and all of my listeners out there. You all know that I am the personification of wokeness, and that deserves some clapping. I'm going to use these sound effects that my sound engineer set up for me that I just neglect to use as often as I should. Okay, so here we go. With the shout outs. First of all, anchor.fm / Spotify / a whole bunch of other outfits that gather all these broadcasts and then disseminate them to the world, like the EU, where I have about a dozen followers, Australia 2, New Zealand 2, Canada 2, one in Australia, and one in Russia. How did I confuse that? Okay. Congratulations to the United States national soccer team. They move on to the elimination round on Tuesday. They play the Dutch. That's going to be a tough game, and I wish them well. Okay. And shout outs to Mickey Huff, who lives up in Sacramento, and he's the godfather of Project Censored, and you can pre-order their latest book by going to projectcensored.org. And it's the State of the Free Press 2022, and their phrase that they use to describe themselves is the news that didn't make the news. Check them out. Okay, and sign up for their newsletter, too. That's an interesting monthly compendium of tidbits of the news that didn't make the news. Okay, locally, Tom Gaffey, Nariman, Tom and Nancy, Rich and Kathy, Kevin and Lori, John Crowley, he's a newbie. He's the owner of Aquas Cafe, which is a community outfit, and this Saturday, the 3rd, I'm going down there because I haven't gotten a response from the leader of Vets Walk and Talk. They gather there, supposedly, on Saturday mornings, although it may be raining then. It's Friday is a dry day, supposedly, and then the rains come back on Saturday, so the Vets Walk and Talk might not take place, but I'm going to go down there anyway. I'll have some coffee and breakfast maybe. Okay. Let's see, where did I leave off? Okay. Tom and Kathy at Aquas. Dennis and Megan down in Tiburon. Dennis is actually my sound engineer and overall computer maven who, when things go wrong here, which they do occasionally, there's an app on the computer where he can take control of my computer and just fix whatever needs to be fixed remotely. I appreciate him for that. Okay, and they're down in Tiburon. In San Francisco, Yvonne Santos, Stan and Kathy, and Lefty Susan Miller. Down in Pacifica. In L.A., Jackie and Wayne. Hope you're feeling better, Wayne. And their two daughters, Melanie and Samantha. Down in Arizona, my brother Brandon, his wife Mina, and their daughter Andrea. We missed you at Thanksgiving, but Andrea, take care of yourself. We saw Aaron and Chrissy at this Thanksgiving. Aaron is Andrea's older brother. Okay. And Andrea and Tim, her husband, and their three little terrorists. Man. Okay. And then in Arkansas, Shannon Reed. In Florida, Amelia Beamer and Nelson and Alice. North Carolina, Dr. Dave, my favorite lung doctor of all time. Up to Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger. And Sonora, Robert and Colleen Finnegan. Happy birthday, Colleen. And Bob and Sandy Fisher and their daughter Martha, a nurse. Take care of yourself up there. COVID is coming back. Be careful out there. And then Brad, who's the curator of the Sonoma County Historical Society up in Sonora. If you're ever up that way, stop in and see how he's organized the historical effects up there. Okay, Darrell Larson, Judy May, Leonidas Maciel, Kathy Francis, Lynn Quayle, and then John Gleason and his two daughters, Jennifer and Tiffany. I guess one or the other of them listen in occasionally. Okay, and then all the way down to Mexico City, Rosie Lopez Negrete, ex-Sonora grammar school student, now living with now having to have moved down to Mexico City with her mother, who divorced some guy up in Sonora. Okay. All right. Whew. I need a sip. And this is milk, by the way, this time. Good for the bones. Okay. And I promised a couple of my listeners, as per their suggestions, that I would start off every show with good news and end with good news and try to find better news than the usual rants that I do because of bad news, usually caused by Republicans. Okay. Good demise of religion news. Only 23% of Poles under 25 regularly go to church, mostly Catholic church. Polish youth are weary of the church's symbiotic relationship with the country's deeply conservative governing party, which is called Law and Justice over there. They are the equivalent of the United States' Republican Party. They are anti-LGBTQ and all of the stuff that goes along with that. I can't remember the president of Poland right now, but he's from the Law and Justice Party, and he's I hope that he goes the way of Jair Bolsonaro down in Brazil. And the orange sociopathic bloat bag who controls the Republican Party up in this country, I hope that he goes the way of Jair Bolsonaro as well. Okay, I'll have more to talk about that later in the show. Okay, there's a fitness fad going around. It's called retro walking, and it's described as the trendy new fitness innovation. Anything that's described as trendy raises red flags in my head. Well, it raises a lot of red flags in skeptic circles as well. Okay, and retro walking, okay, it's been seized upon by fitness gurus as backwards walking is good for you because it increases blood flow and oxygen flow and improves your mind, blah, 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 all these things. And it's not bad for you. Any kind of exercise is good for you. And, but, okay, holding this new faddish, trendy exercise thing up to scientific scrutiny, well, of course it didn't pan out with all the claims that these exercise gurus claimed for it. And the investigator for the Skeptical Inquirer, who is Nick Teller, and he himself is a fitness buff, he tells us that these don't actually create more blood and oxygen flow to any of our body parts. And I should do more exercise than I do. But when I do, I get out and walk around the neighborhood, which is good for me. I should do that way more than I do. Okay. Now, there's a Time article, new topic. There's a Time article entitled, "Most Americans Think Parents Should Be Able to Opt Their Kids Out of Learning Things That the Parents Disagree With." We should all be frightened of that. And most of the parents that disagree with this or that topic are MAGA heads. And what they disagree with is usually CRT or studies about LGBTQ subjects or wokeness, which is a favorite topic of MAGA heads, Republican legislators. Okay, I'm off my notes. All of this is terrifying. Nearly all adults agree that children should be learning critical thinking and problem-solving skills in schools and learn about controversial issues in balanced ways. Well, Fox News calls itself fair and balanced. That gives you an idea of what some parents mean by balanced. The author of this article, by the way, is Daniel Silver, and it was written on November 4th of this year. Okay, at the same time, though, more than 6 in 10 Americans think parents should be able to opt out children from school lessons that include content they find objectionable. Okay, all of this stuff comes from a study, and you can Google this. It's called Understanding America Study. And Daniel Silver was highly involved in this study. And he was an analysis of all the data that they were receiving. Okay. And parental rights is a new catchphrase that MAGA head politicians use to rile up their MAGA base and sow distrust in our schools. Our teachers are all grooming our kids, shoving CRT down their throat. I'm going to homeschool my kid and turn him into a follower of the orange sociopathic bloat bag who's running for president in 2024. Okay, distrust in schools. And topics like equity, identity, gender, and scientific ideas would all suffer. MAGA parents fear real education for their kids. And MAGA head GOP politicians are encouraging parents to spy on teachers and object to this and that, or invade school board meetings and condemn this or that. So, that's a Republican tactic. Okay. Good news. All right. Virginia right-wing nut governor Glenn Youngkin has quietly deactivated the parental tip line to report teachers that, in parents' opinion, are teaching or promoting CRT. When asked why, a spokesperson for Youngkin said there was, quote, because they had received little or no volume, unquote. Good. Human rights lawyer Qasim Rashid tweeted out, quote, GOP Virginia governor just set up a tip line to report schools and teachers who teach about racism. Email helpeducation@governor.virginia.gov. Whatever you do, don't make a mockery of this with fake tips. That would be a terrible thing to do. Respond to Twitter so everyone knows not to send fake tips. Don't try to overload this, teacher tip line in Virginia. Don't do that. Okay, another posting on Facebook today. I just ran across it a couple hours ago. Quote, when you ban books before you ban guns, you've admitted you're afraid of children learning more than you are of them dying. Hear, hear. Okay. Good news. More from MAGA head Governor Glenn Youngkin and Bloatbag Jr. from Florida. And I've told you before, the last couple of shows, that the governor of Florida will henceforth be referred to as Bloatbag Jr. Okay? New, quote unquote, election crimes units find nothing because voters abusing the voting system was never a problem. Hey, Carrie Lake in Arizona, are you listening, loser? Okay. When MAGA head GOP governors, attorney generals, and legislators began cobbling together election fraud units after the 2020 presidential elections, and it was this all done because of the orange sociopathic bloat bag poor losing attitude. Stop the steal! It was apparent it would be a waste of time and money. Virginia's Attorney General Jason Miyares, okay, Jason and then capital Miyares, set one up, meaning an election fraud unit out of his office. But he said there was no widespread voter fraud anywhere or in Virginia. But he set one up anyway just to appease the MAGA-head politicians that he was serving under, Glenn Youngkin and, the stop the steal politicians. Okay. Good news. Deforestation in the Amazon in Brazil has slowed a bit last year, according to the National Institute for Space Research. They have some satellites up there that keep track of these things, deforestation among them. And roughly, this sounds like a lot to me, roughly 4,500 square miles were lost from August 2021 to July 2022. This is down from 11% from last year. Let's hope far-right Brazilian ex-president Jair Bolsonaro will just fade away like the orange sociopathic bloat bag is seeming to do. The Amazon, I've said this on numerous shows, are the lungs of the planet. They remove carbon dioxide from the air and give us back oxygen. I think the second largest deforestation is taking part in Indonesia, unfortunately, and then also in the Congo region of Africa. But you get good news where you can get it. Okay. Now, new topic. Maybe this is good news. The Biden administration has taken its plan. Oh boy, my handwriting strikes again. The Biden administration has taken its plan for student loan forgiveness to the U.S. Supreme Court to try to reverse a federal appeals court decision to halt it. 6 MAGA-head Republican-led states have sued to impose an nationwide injunction on the plan amid ongoing legislation. Republicans would rather die than actually give help to anyone, except for corporations and the wealthy. It's just not in their playbook to do something to, like, help students who emerge from college with hefty student debt. It'll cause inflation. It'll run up the national debt. We can't do it. Okay. Let me take a deep breath here. Take another sip of milk. Okay. Quackery has been punished. California naturopath and homeopath Julie Mazzi, Okay, capital Juli, capital Mazi, will spend 33 months in federal prison for falsifying federal COVID-19 vaccination cards and selling pellets she falsely claimed would offer lifetime protection from COVID. Mazi, now she's over there in Napa. She's just over the hill a ways from us. She pleaded guilty in April of this year and could have gotten 25 years in lockup for all the charges brought against her. She made thousands of dollars from parents who wanted fake health records. Probably these parents were MAGA head anti-vaxxers. Okay, they wanted false immunization cards she knew would be used to mislead schools into believing students had been immunized from childhood illnesses as required by law here in California. Her fake COVID pellets were, okay, I'm going to have to maybe spell this out. Homeoprophylaxis immunization. Okay. HOMEOPROPHYLAXIS. Now, homeo should raise a red flag right away. Well, it did with me. She is a licensed naturopathic doctor, however. Now, I don't have the California laws on licensing of naturopathic doctors right in front of me here. On an upcoming show, I will research that. What do these quacks need to do, and do they have their own licensing apparatus, or is it some state agency? Well, it shouldn't be. Okay. But however it works, she got her license. Okay. Now, here's where the Center for Inquiry's stance on naturopathy comes in. Center for Inquiry is, or CFI, is the parent company of one of the subunits that publishes Skeptical Inquiry, a magazine that I take a lot of this from, and I've subscribed to it for, I don't know, about 25 years now. And they consider themselves a consumer protection agency. They're suing CVS and Walmart for deceiving customers with their placement of homeopathic products on shelves right alongside real medicine. So I've talked about that on a couple of shows, but here is the Center for Inquiry's stance on naturopathy, or naturopathy, however you pronounce that. Okay, 1, the government should not permit the practice of naturopathy as a form of health care or medical care for any purpose. 2, the government should not permit the licensure of naturopaths, nor should it recognize the legitimacy of naturopathic services. Naturopathic certifications. Okay, 3, insurance should not be required to cover naturopathic services and naturopathic reimbursement from the government or tax privileges. Okay, that's their official CFI stance on this, and I agree with that. Here. Okay, just a little rant about naturopathy. Whew. Ranting is an exercise in and itself, but I refuse to do it backward, like backward walking. Okay, enough of that. Okay, typically, naturopathy combines routine medical practices with a wide variety of unproven or even disproven treatments, some of which are even dangerous. Naturopathic colleges require students to study discredited modalities such as homeopathy and energy healing. Energy healing. Okay, many naturopaths are anti-vaxxers and recommend pseudoscientific no-sodes. Okay, well, what are they? As an alternative to vaccines. Okay, no-sodes. It's a biological preparation used in homeopathic medicine, advanced by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann over in Germany in the early 1800s. And it's no-sodes are derived from a diseased tissue or from the bacteria or virus that caused the disease. And it's put into water and then diluted greatly because, as we all know, water has memory. I'm joking if you don't get my change in tone. Okay. The conceptual model of homeopathic medicine, which is like cures like, is complete nonsense. Do not buy homeopathic medicines. Walmart even makes its own house brand of homeopathic medicines. Do not buy them. Put them out of business. Whoever the private makers of homeopathic medicines are will never put Walmart out of business. Okay. New topic. Good news. A whole cottage industry has grown up around sexual abuse by clergymen, priests, rabbis, ministers, pastors, imams, and mullahs, and on and on and on and on. You read their ads online, and you hear them on the radio, so on and so on and so on and so on law firm. And their quote is usually, if you were sexually abused as a child in California, no matter how old you were, no matter when the abuse was perpetrated, you still have rights, but time is running out. December 31st is the deadline to file for these church sexual abuse claims. If you're a middle-aged person now and some priest told you to come over on and sit on his lap so he can give you the good news about Jesus, then you can still file a claim. And there's more and more law firms all the time advertising those services. Okay. Horrible news update. Okay, MAGA head, GOP pro-life Indiana Attorney General yesterday, which is, November 30th, Wednesday, asked the state medical licensing board to discipline an Indianapolis doctor who provided an abortion to the 10-year-old girl from Ohio who was raped and impregnated. And her mom had to take her out of Ohio because of their strict abortion laws and take her across state lines in Indiana, which didn't have a strict abortion law at that time. Okay, I've mentioned this story a couple of months ago on a number of occasions, and it made all the news. But here we go. Indiana Attorney General is coming down hard on her. Okay. The abortion was performed before Indiana's strict abortion law. Indiana's strict abortion law went into effect, and the doctor in question is Dr. Caitlin Bernard. And she's an outspoken advocate for women's rights to their bodily autonomy. That's what set off all these MAGA head pro-life creeps against her. Let's see. MAGA head Republicans hate her and are going after her in any way that they can. Okay. More new topic. I've said on this show that this world would be a happier place, a more loving place, if religion, all religions, would just fade away. We don't need it. Okay. More religious violence, bad news. 10 students, young boys, are killed in Afghan school bombing. The explosion went off at the time of afternoon prayers at the Al-Jihad Madrasa. And madrasa is a religious school, mainly. I don't know what else they learn. Certainly not science, certainly not reality. Okay, and it was occurred in Aybak, Aybak, which is the capital of Samangan province. I'm sure that all my listeners know right where that is. The Islamic State has been waging a campaign of violence that has escalated since the Taliban took power in August 2021. Why am I mentioning that? Because it's an example of the violence and hatred that is perpetrated by religion of all kinds. If Southern Baptists had a bomb expert amongst their clergy, I'm sure that they would go around bombing abortion clinics and Planned Parenthood. They just, we have the means in this country to stop creeps like that. Like January 6th, insurrection at the Capitol. These guys are slowly being scooped up by the justice system. Oh God, I'm going to have a brain freeze on the Oath Keepers leader. But anyway, he was found guilty. So I imagine that's the only reason that's keeping Southern Baptist and Pentecostal bombers from going after who they see as sinners. Okay, and that's kind of why I mention this. I mean, it's not just me being anti-Muslim, which I'm not, or at least I'm not any more than I'm anti any other religion. Okay, bad news. LGBTQ propaganda bill is approved by the upper house in Russia, which is, giving Florida a run for its money as a dystopian place to live. Okay. It will now go to the bill will now go to President Vladimir Putin, who will sign it. It will ban the spreading of, quote, propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations to minors. Okay. And advertising, media, as well as books, films, and theater would be outlawed if any LGBTQ action is portrayed. I wonder how well Brokeback Mountain would go over in Russia. Whoever decided to show that movie would be arrested and sent to some gulag out in Siberia. Governor Bloatbag Jr. in Florida and Virginia Governor Maga Yonkin. Hey, are you guys listening to this? You're not going to let Russia get ahead of you guys, are you? And again, why am I mentioning Russia? There's two forces at work in the world today, in the world's countries. It is a rightward drift and a more progressive, loving, liberal drift. Okay. We dodged a bullet by not re-electing the orange sociopathic bloatbag in 2022, although he's still insisting that the election was stolen, and a lot of his MAGA head followers agree with him. Another sip. Boy, my throat is drying out. I'm not sure that milk really helps the throat to be undried. Okay, I got to end with good news. A federal judge in Florida blocked a law that was being pushed by Governor Bloatbag Jr. that restricts certain race-based conversations and analysis, are you ready for this, in colleges. The Stop Woke Act was called, quote unquote, positively dystopian by Judge Mark Walker, as he temporarily put it on hold. I'm sure that Florida will appeal this because they certainly don't want to be woke. Okay, and here's the article. Okay, I'm going to read parts of this. This is concerning just what I was talking about. Tallahassee U.S. District Judge Mark Walker issued a temporary injunction last week against what is known as the quote-unquote Stop Woke Act in a ruling that called the legislation quote-unquote positively dystopian. The law prohibits teaching or business practices that contend members of one ethnic group are inherently racist and should feel guilt for past actions committed by others. None of that is ever done. It also bars the notion that a person's status as privileged or oppressed is necessarily determined by their race or gender, or that discrimination is acceptable to achieve diversity. Okay. And this is a quote. I think it's a quote from the judge. Yes, it is. Okay. Quote, our professors are critical to a healthy democracy. Well, MAGA heads would disagree with that. And the state of Florida's decision to choose which viewpoints are worthy of illumination and which must remain in the shadows has implications for us all, Judge Walker wrote. Quote, if our priests of democracy are not allowed to shed light on challenging ideas, then democracy will die in darkness. Now, that's what Republicans want, for democracy to die. Okay. A spokesman for DeSantis said the ruling will be appealed. Of course. The ruling is at least a temporary setback to the powerful Republican governor's agenda to combat what he describes as, quote-unquote, woke ideology of liberals and critical race theory, a way of thinking about America's history through the lens of racism. DeSantis, or Bloatbag Jr., won a landslide re-election to a second term this month after a campaign that focused heavily on cultural issues. All right. Okay, let me look at some more of this. Okay, in August, Walker issued a similar ruling on the law that blocked it from taking effect in businesses. The law is also subject to another legal challenge from a group of K through 12 teachers and a student. Yay! Okay, I will keep my thousands and thousands of listeners updated on this. Go for it, Florida teachers. The governor, Bloatbag Jr., began pushing for the law late last year, and the Republican-controlled legislature passed it during the 2022 legislative session. And this article goes on just briefly about CRT. Okay. Critical race theory was developed during the 1970s and 1980s in response to what scholars viewed as a lack of racial progress following the civil rights legislation of the 1960s. Okay, that's when Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act in 1964, I believe. That's what set off all the Dixiecrats down in the South to flock to the Republican Party. And it's what Richard Nixon used as a Southern strategy. It centers on the idea that racism is systematic in the nation's institutions, and they function to maintain the dominance of white people in our society. Okay. I have a little bit more time to go here, but I'm not going to just sit here letting you look at my gorgeous face. Let's see. There's some reason why I see. Oh God. Now, this is from yesterday. The San Francisco Police Department has a fleet of robots. A lot of police departments do, if they can afford it, for dangerous situations, hostage situations, or where bank robbers have blocked the door from entrance by the police, things like that. Well, there's debate now in San Francisco about whether a couple of these robots should have the ability to have a little explosive charge attached to them that it could use to break through doors, or in dire situations, even kill the perpetrator. Okay, now the Chronicle. Okay, here it is. Killer robots, quote unquote, are okayed for the SFPD. You know, I'm rather pro-police, although they should be, their training should be upgraded. And they should certainly not be defunded. And I'm all for having some of these robots armed. Okay? But here's the paper. They're calling them killer robots. Oh, geez. That's going to set off all the way ultra crazy left-wingers. All right. So, okay. I've got to end this before my throat just goes south. It's already gone south. Okay. So let me play my out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Cat and puppy petting have been scientifically proven to reduce cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. I talked about that last week. And on my Facebook announcement of this show, I mentioned that I was going to revisit that and how much that finding upsets Fox News. Well, I didn't get to that. Okay. But next show, I'm going to do that. And also some kind of bad news concerning California's own history and what we did to some of the Native American tribes around California that I didn't know about until the ACLU has brought a lawsuit against the state of California to expose this or try to rectify it. And it's kind of like our own CRT. And I will go into that as soon as I digest all this ACLU information. Okay. That is it until next week. And I'm going to, before the month of December is over, the 100th show will be before the turn of the year. See you next week.